What if I told you someone could influence your decisions without ever giving you an order? No threats, no force, no obvious control. Just psychology. Every day, people shape the way you think, feel, and behave. Sometimes it's intentional, sometimes it's unconscious. But either way, the result is the same. You start acting in ways that benefit them more than you. And the most dangerous part? Most manipulation doesn't feel like manipulation. It feels like friendship, love, advice, concern, or even kindness. That's why manipulation remains one of the most powerful psychological forces in human behavior. Because the moment you recognize it, you start seeing it everywhere. Most people imagine manipulators as villains, cold, calculating, obvious. But real-life manipulation is far more subtle. It hides inside ordinary conversations. A guilty look, a disappointed sigh, a carefully chosen phrase, a sudden withdrawal of attention. The manipulator rarely says, "Do what I want." Instead, they create emotional conditions that make you want to do it yourself. And that's what makes psychological manipulation fascinating. The best manipulators don't control your actions directly. They influence your emotions. And once emotions change, behavior usually follows. Have you ever apologized for something that wasn't really your fault? Stayed silent to avoid conflict? Felt guilty for setting a healthy boundary? Many people have. Not because they're weak, because humans are emotionally wired for connection. We want acceptance, belonging, approval. And manipulators understand that. They know most people fear rejection more than they fear control. So instead of attacking directly, they create emotional pressure. Over time, you stop making decisions based on what feels right. You start making decisions based on what keeps the peace. And that's where manipulation becomes dangerous, because the person slowly loses contact with their own needs. One of the oldest manipulation techniques is guilt. Not accountability, guilt. The manipulator says, "After everything I've done for you, I guess you don't care about me. Fine, forget it." Simple sentences. Powerful emotional consequences. Another technique is emotional withdrawal. The moment they don't get what they want, they disappear emotionally. Cold, distant, unresponsive. The silence isn't accidental. It's strategic. Because humans naturally seek emotional resolution. The manipulator knows you'll eventually chase the connection. Then there's love bombing. An overwhelming amount of attention, affection, praise, validation. In the beginning, it feels incredible. You feel special, chosen, important. But the purpose isn't connection. It's dependency. Because once someone becomes emotionally attached, control becomes easier. And perhaps the most dangerous technique of all is gaslighting, the manipulation of reality itself. The manipulator says, "That never happened. You're imagining things. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting." And little by little, you stop trusting your own mind. Because confusion creates vulnerability, and vulnerability creates influence. One of the most common manipulation techniques is guilt. Not honest accountability, guilt. The manipulator says, "After everything I've done for you, I guess I care more than you do. Fine, forget it." Simple words, heavy emotional impact. Another technique is emotional withdrawal. When they don't get what they want, they become cold, distant, silent. Not because they need space, because they want you to feel anxious. The goal is simple: make you uncomfortable enough to chase approval. Then there's gaslighting, one of the most psychologically damaging techniques. The manipulator denies reality, questions your memory, dismisses your feelings, until you begin doubting yourself. And once someone loses trust in their own perception, they become easier to control. Because confusion creates dependency. Emotionally intelligent people eventually learn something powerful. Manipulation always creates emotional imbalance. Healthy relationships create clarity. Manipulative relationships create confusion. Healthy people respect boundaries. Manipulators challenge them. Healthy people communicate directly. Manipulators communicate indirectly. The difference isn't always obvious at first, but emotionally intelligent individuals learn to pay attention to patterns instead of promises. Because words can lie. Patterns rarely do. And once you start observing behavior consistently, manipulation becomes easier to recognize.
Human beings are naturally influenced by emotion. This isn't a flaw. It's biology. Our brains evolved to seek safety, belonging, and social approval. That's why manipulation works. It targets emotional instincts: fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of conflict, fear of being misunderstood. Manipulators often don't create new fears. They simply activate fears that already exist. And once fear enters the equation, logic becomes weaker. Emotion becomes stronger. That's why even intelligent people can be manipulated. Because manipulation isn't an intelligence problem. It's an emotional vulnerability problem. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Not all manipulation is intentional. Sometimes people manipulate because they're afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of being abandoned. Afraid of not getting their emotional needs met. Their manipulation becomes a survival strategy. That doesn't make it healthy, but it explains why manipulation often comes from wounded people. The person controlling others is often struggling to control themselves. And understanding that distinction is important, because awareness creates wisdom, not resentment.
The goal is not becoming suspicious of everyone. The goal is becoming aware of yourself. Because the strongest defense against manipulation isn't aggression. It's self-awareness. Knowing your values, trusting your perception, respecting your boundaries, and understanding your emotional triggers. Because when someone understands your emotions better than you do, they gain influence. But when you understand yourself deeply, that influence begins to disappear. And perhaps that's the greatest psychological truth of all. Manipulation works in darkness. Awareness brings light. And the moment you stop ignoring what your intuition has been trying to tell you is the moment manipulation starts losing its power over your life.